Been playing this game since 1982. Took hundreds of thousands of dollars in quarters for me to do. I got the highest scoring Gallagher. I got the highest scoring Gallagher. I got the highest scoring Gallagher. This might be the greatest moment I will ever have.
Hey, Biff, what do you call it when an orphan takes a selfie?
What do you call it when an orphan takes a selfie?
That's a family photo.
Okay. Hey, I got one.
Oh, you do?
Hey, I got one.
Yeah.
You might have to edit this out though, but I have one. What's a reverse exorcism?
Oh. Let me think. When you pull a priest from a baby?
You're kind of on the right track. That's when the priest is inside the child and the demon is screaming at him to get out and he won't.
Oh man, I actually had a friend who had an exorcism, but then he didn't pay the priest. He got repossessed. Repossessed.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
If only Joe was here to enjoy this with us.
I know, right?
But it's just
Yeah,
us.
and he has better jokes too.
Oh, much better. So
Yeah.
hey, everybody, welcome to Carnival Personnel. It's me, Jacques, and just Biff. Just Biff and Jacques, and that's it.
Just Biff and Jacques, and that's it.
Want to hear a joke?
What do you got for us, Joe? You throw one at us. Let's see.
What did the Pink Panther say when he stepped on an ant?
What did the Pink Panther say when he stepped on an ant?
No, I'm asking you. What did the Pink Panther say when he stepped on an ant?
Dead ant.
Oh, yes.
Dead ant.
That makes sense.
Dead
You
ant,
know
dead
what?
ant.
I only saw the first half of that joke. So thank God you had that punchline.
Well, happy New Year, gentlemen.
Yeah.
I hope you're well.
Yeah.
As well as you can be, Biff, with the grown-up
right.
job that you're working
know.
25 hours a day.
Oh yeah, not that quite. It's not the worst work that I've had, but it's pretty brutal.
And so I threw it out there, and I talked to Joe about it. Hopefully, after we record this for next week's sideshow, we're going to have a little "What do you believe in?" It's kind of like a catch-all, go down the list of the stereotypical things, time travel, and ghosts and all that stuff. It should be.
Yeah, I saw the "Do you believe in" the rundown, and I thought this was going to be a Cher song, but
do you want me to just play that on a half-hour loop?
aside from the copyright issue that it'll cause, sure.
Or we could just get Joe to do a self-indulgent theater and have him do Cher's
Right.
I Believe.
Do you do Cher?
As Don, I could do Don Knotts singing Cher.
Oh, no, it's doing Cher.
I would listen to that on a half-hour loop and enjoy each and every moment. So let's start off the new year on a sad note. I didn't know this until New Year's Eve itself. Biff, every New Year's Eve that I've lived in the great city of Boston, since the early 80s, TV 38 has done a Three Stooges marathon. And that was the crux of my New Year's celebration forever. It's something that I loved. It's something that Joe loved. It's something that all of New England who got WSBK TV 38 loved. And then
So this is like a local one of those independents.
It's a station that carried the Red Sox and the Bruins in the first 10 years of Nesson. I think
Is that like your CW station? Is that what it is now? Okay.
Yeah. Well, now it's called My 38.
It's independent now. It used to carry
independent.
UPN.
Oh,
and then
well,
UPN went away.
Yeah.
But they had it up until last year, and and they lost it. And I didn't know that. I literally was so excited. Management and I had no plans. A couple friends coming over to
Because
just
they maybe increase the royalty fees. I mean, come on, really? You think? What do you think?
Well, I learned on the internet that SBK lost the rights because I guess back in August they were not offered the rights by the rights holders and went to MeTV, which ran MeTV is
right. I know MeTV.
like a competing nationwide syndication,
right.
but they ran like a 2-hour Three Stooges marathon, which is not really a marathon. It's more of like it's like a fun run.
It's a slot. Yeah.
And there were years that would just be Shemp or just be this or just be that. And it was great. And sometimes without commercial interruptions. And, in the old days, they would have like, and Joe sent me a great link. I won't make everybody go down the rabbit hole. I will put it up, on Twitter. But
you won't.
I will, because TV 38, as Joe and I have been getting together the last few months and watching some of their local original programming, like Ask the Manager, and they tried to have kind of it was a show called We Don't Knock, where their big movie critic guy who had this show, The Movie Loft, that lasted forever, was just walking around Boston, going into clubs and stuff like that, unannounced. It was a fun thing. But they would build interspecials throughout the whole evening, cutting back and forth between the themes of the different Three Street. Anyways, it's sad. I found a petition online. I donated to it. I sent it to Joe, and as Joe said, what was your email?
Well, he said he sent me the link to donate to the change.org. He said he literally donated he threw his $2 in, and I wrote back, P.T. Barnum was wrong. 2 suckers were born every minute because I did this. I did the same thing. Oh God, I got money to burn, baby.
That's George Santos's campaign fund, right?
Oh, dude, yeah, nothing. We'll get into that. But so, update on my journey to nowhere in the stand-up world. I cannot believe that there's not a Christopher Guest movie about open mics yet. And now that I've been going the last few months out to Worcester, once or twice a week to do open mics, and there's a whole little subgroup of about 14, 15 all white guys between mid-20s and mid-30s, mostly. There's another guy in the mid-40s, but mostly, and it's a really interesting kind of vibe. It's gotten more misogynistic and more punching down, but I've recently found a place in Lowell I've been going, and it's kind of the same, but a little different. That they both seem very incel-ish, kind of little things. But I'm gonna tell everybody that I, for the first time, got to do a real set in front of real people, and I won't say any more about it, but I'll turn it over to Joe to give a review and a recap of the evening.
Yeah, Jacques called me that day because he got the call that day that he was going up that night and to do an actual set to open the monthly Mondo Comedy Showcase. Down in Lowell, Mass. I get my Lynn's and Lowell's, whatever. It's all the same shithole, right? Up in Lowell, Mass. And it's hosted by Greg Bogus, local comic.
Of course. Yeah. And
he gave Jacques a spot to open the night, and it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. It was the fullest I've seen that theater in the 3 or 4 times that I've gone in the past year. The seats now, the seats are way too comfortable for a nightclub. I mean, they're really it's set up for a movie theater, but it's not so much. But it's it's like those big those types of, they don't recline, but they're they still have drink holders and they're big and red in there. But anyways, I'm reviewing the seats, not so much Jacques' set. But no, Jacques went up and he did his, some of his A material and some of his B material. He couldn't lay off the Jesus jokes, man. They gave him a little bit of a chuckle on the first Jesus joke, and he said, well, hey, if you like that, here's 12 more. And, it went as well as I'd hoped, if not better. I had virtually no notes except slow down. Like, what does a yellow light mean? And lay off the Jesus jokes. And there was one groaner because he made a reference to the Native American ad from the 70s where the
guy
pollution
cries.
ad
Yeah.
and the Native American cries, played by an Italian American, by the way. But he said the phrase it would make a Native American cry. I won't give away the joke. I don't want to burn that material here on the podcast. But it got a couple of like, ooh, like, and it doesn't help that we were in front of the First Nation people, almost exclusively all First Nation. No, we got rid of them long ago. I'm just kidding. Gosh darn it, I'm so person.
A bunch of them were going to show up, but they didn't have a reservation.
Oh.
I'll show myself out,
please. That's the podcast. Good night, everybody.
No, it was great. And it's like, my sister, and she wants to be supportive. She goes, "I'll come see you some night." Like, no, you won't. And, it's funny because, I won't let the wife go either to these open mics because they're just awful. And, there was one guy I was telling her the routine the other day. He had this whole routine basically about her. It's like, if you're almost 50, stop coloring your hair purple and pink. I mean, you're not cool anymore. If your body doesn't make eggs anymore, your head shouldn't look like an Easter one. That's the payoff or a 3-minute setup. You know what I mean? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, this
and 2.5 of those minutes are him telling the crowd how he can't get laid.
Yes, it is. It's 100% is like, oh, this bitch on this app was saying this to me. This is like, okay. Well, next on the Incel Comedy Hour we got, but no, it was great. I was so glad that Joe went, and he did have notes. When I got back to the seat, he's like, that was weird that there was people laughing and not at you.
Yeah, he actually had to hold for laughter, and I think that threw off your timing. But yeah, I think for
cool,
our first outing, it was pretty good.
That's good.
So hopefully I'll go back up next month. Another fun news thing. So everybody knows how much work we put into the front yard for like Halloween and for Christmas. And this year we really did it up. We set up a whole skeleton Christmas party thing. And it's really funny because we got a knock on the door, or actually a ring on the ring alarm. And I'm not home. I'm out shopping, and somebody rings a ring alarm, and it rings to my phone. I'm like, hi, and it's some kid. I'm like selling school stuff, something like that. And he's like, hi, all the skeletons you have out front, do you want another skeleton dog and a vulture? And I'm like, what? Maybe. And he goes, well, my mom's here, and he points to like the car behind him. If you want him, we were going to get rid of them. So I'm like, hold on. I called management, who was home, and I'm like, hey, can you go down to the door? And so there was some family that was like cleaning up their stuff, and they were like, oh, we're going to get rid of this. And the dad was like, no, that house down the street that we really, really, and so the lady was talking to management and saying, it's like, we've taken pictures in front of your house. We sent it to our friends who have driven by to take pictures with your skeletons. We absolutely love when we come around, because it was kind of a blind corner, like a quarter mile away. When we come around that corner and the lights are on, we just instantly make us happy. And
should we take our trash to the dump or to Pee Wee's Playhouse?
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right.
And it's funny. So I was talking to a friend from high school the other day. He called. I'm like, hey, you caught me at a bad moment. He goes, oh, what's wrong? I said, I'm actually taking down the Millennium Falcon Christmas inflatable in the yard, and blah blah blah. And he goes, oh, blah blah blah. I said, we'll put something up for Halloween or for Valentine's Day, but I love. And as I'm talking to him, we have looks like a little turnaround, in our driveway type thing where people will pull over, look for direction, and there's a car that's slowing, and then the car gets right up to me, and the window's down, and it's an old lady. And I thought she was going to ask for directions, and she's like, I never see anybody here when I drive by, and I just want to tell you. And she starts telling me how great the yard is. And my friend Ron's like, wow, what a coincidence. I'm like, Ron, it happens all the time. Like literally it happens. And it's funny because I know there's some people who see it, like friends of mine, they're like, oh my God, I hate being your neighbor. It's like, well, our neighbors don't seem to mind. They're always asking when it's going up and what's next, and, but it is. And it's funny because our oldest son was helping us put lights up at one point, and he was like, you guys put a lot of work into this. And I'm like, buddy, it's like, and I say this all the time, and it's true. Life is one shit storm after the next. Yeah. And if you could do a tiny thing that for a minute makes somebody smile, do it. You know what I mean? If it's a pratfall, do it. If it's, it's like, because the little guy, he is at that awkward age. Well, he's at that age where he gets awkward when I joke with cashiers or joke with the people in the store. Cause I am that guy, it's like we were in, the market basket the other day, and there's a guy walking towards me, and we both sidestep, but in the same direction to let the other one by, and we did it twice. Right. And I'm like, hey, look, we're dancing. And my little guy's like, Papa, don't. It's like, and that guy thought it was like the funniest thing ever. If I put one hand on my hip and extended the other arm, I mean, he might have tipped me. I don't know, but it was just funny. And another funny thing, and I don't know if I'm going to put in the work to do this every podcast, but for this podcast, I'm going to call it the rabbit hole of the week. And I think Joe and I fell down this rabbit hole together on.
I'm surprised you hadn't seen this before, though.
Okay, you know about it. Then you guys talk.
I started like several years. Well, no, I mean, I didn't go back into it.
I don't know what you guys are talking
years ago.
The woman from Nebraska, the real life Jiminy Glick.
I mean, she asked all these like really kind of some of those questions that people kind of want to ask but never would because people aren't rude to celebrities. But she'll just outright ask things like, I mean, yeah. So I saw probably like four or 5 years ago. I saw it posted, and so I kind of watched a few of those then. But
the woman's name is Letta Powell Drake, and she is a legend in the Nebraska market. I guess in the late '60s, she was part of like Joe, were you young or old enough to remember like the Bozo Big Top cartoon show? Okay. Yeah. Okay. And what was the one on Scrooged? What did he play? The dog.
Oh, Frisbee the dog.
Frisbee the dog show.
You left Clara for Frisbee the dog. Let me tell you something. You don't know who you are. You don't know what you want. And you don't know what the hell is going on.
But she played Calamity Kate on the cartoon carnival, like on that local station, and then segued into the news, and then segued into being the entertainment. And like you said, Biff, it's like I must have watched like 2 or 3 full interviews or montages where it's not that she just asked like questions that you would want to ask. Yes, of course she asked like was it Elliot Gould? It's like why he didn't do MASH. It's like, do you regret not doing the TV show after the movie? It's like, no. Well, they all made a lot of money. You don't think you're a good actor, do you? It's like flat out. Her next question is like, well, you don't think you're a good actor. And he's like, the deer and then the whole, what happened to Bosom Buddies?
To Peter Scolari. What happened to Bosom Buddies? Yeah, it got canceled. But then after I saw all the retrospectives on the late Barbara Walters and her interviews, I thought of Lita and I go, oh, so she was trying to be as provocative and in-depth or get the deep answers out of these celebrities, but without all of the tact and charm of disarming the celebrities prior to. It's just sort of like, hey, how's it going, Tom Hanks? Man, your career is really dipping, isn't it? It's not soaring as you thought it might. Even the Money Pit? Really? I don't know.
Who did she say it to? Gene Hackman. She's like, you've done a lot of really great movies. You've done a few stinkers too, haven't you? And he's just like,
like Matthew Broderick, tell us about your DUI accident.
Oh no.
And honestly, it's like, so when Joe said that, I said, yes, 100% she is trying to be Brava Wawa, with none of the charm, but truly, it's one of those things. I love Mike Myers. Yeah, I love Wayne's World, but after Joe and I revisit it, like Bob and Doug McKenzie, we're like, oh, this this is 90% Wayne's World. I mean, this is 90, like Wayne's World is a little less Canadian,
and a lot more funny. Sorry, Strange Brew. Sorry, Strange Brew.
It's had its moments,
Yeah.
but you're right. And the same thing, it's like, okay, I live for Martin Short. He is in my top 5 comedic, entities. But Jiminy Glick isn't that much a creative. Wow, where did he come up with this?
What's your beef with the Nazis?
But that's an execution thing, right? It's not an idea thing, because the execution is good.
And it's also a smash, like supercut of all of her most egregiously awful questions and awkward moments.
I am going to. I'm making a note to post her. So look, this is one episode. We're not going to mention Elon Musk, but I don't
We just
know.
did.
I don't know if you guys know this. Murder is now allowed on Twitter. And if you haven't been following this, Greta Thunberg murdered Andrew Tate on Twitter. Like, actually chalk outlined of the body. Just the most absolute brilliant. And when we say takedown, we usually like knock the person's ego down. But that guy is spending a lot of time in the Gray Bar Hotel thanks to this client, this absolute hero and the climate crisis fight. Have you followed this, Joe? You look a little not know what I'm talking about.
Well, so I when it all dropped, I kind of didn't know, and then I filled myself in. So like Andrew Tate is this like MMA guy who was a real asshole, but then also might have had some human trafficking charges that were looming over him, and he left the country, and like I guess he was found or thought to be in, was it Romania? Or...
Well, he was in Romania. It was known that he was based out of Romania because he apparently has said previously that their laws are a little bit more favorable for him. He kind of announced that he was doing kind of basing himself there, but he was often just not there. And
the best thing is, there wasn't like this is they don't have an ongoing Twitter beef. They don't have this ongoing like adversarial relationship. This one day, this piece of shit got up and decided, I'm just going to troll this teenage girl on the other side of the world. He takes a picture of him filling up, one of his like, $1 million Benghazi or something like that. And
Benghazi, yes, his $1 million Benghazi.
Oh man, I like taking the Benghazi.
Well, actually, he has 3 of them. Benghazi. Oh wait, hold on, that was a GQP platform from 8 years ago. Anyways, but he does. He's taken it. Somebody takes a picture of him filling it up and bragging about how bad the gas miles is, and says, "I'll send me your email. I'll send you a complete list of my cars." And she tweets back, it's like, great, here's my email address, littledickenergy@I'mAloser.com or something like that.
Yeah.
Which she slapped her down. She came back great. You know what I mean? It's like,
and
she
that
can
was like
ignore
what, like last year or something like that, or
it was and just
well, yes, it was last year, but because it was just before.
Yeah.
But it was kind of like 10 days ago. Yeah.
But then then he decides, oh, I'm going to show this bitch, and posts himself. I don't know if the robe he has was from the Hugh Hefner collection, but he has actually the room he was sitting in. That's pretty sweet 1978 paneling behind him. That. I think he was in Eric Foreman's basement, but he's smoking a cigar, to quote Judy Tununu, the size of God's ego. And nothing says sophisticated.
No. Isn't it the size of God's cigar? Isn't it?
No. She has this great routine where it's so old. She was sitting on a plane, next to a guy puffing on a cigar, the size of God's ego.
Oh, that's right. It was a cigar, right? That's right.
But he's there with his brandy, his, what is it, a cipher or whatever you call the glass is. Snifter. Thank you.
Is it snifter?
We're such teetotalers. We don't know this stuff. He's drinking out of his fancy schmancy glass, smoking a cigar, sitting in his robe, and then he's like, "Well, what says fancy cigar and fancy brandy more than pizza?" And then He has to say it. He has to say, make sure you don't recycle these boxes. Well, the police, because they see the name of the boxes is a local chain and there's only so many of them, they call the stores and say, who did you deliver to in the last hour? Great. Let's go to all the houses you delivered to that have 19 sports cars packed in the backyard there. And him and his brother got arrested. And this is why I say murder is legal on Twitter, because the next day Greta tweets out, this is what happens when you don't recycle pizza boxes. Like, oh my God. It's like, so everything about that. And it's like, it was great when the, Donnie Nine Scoops was picking fights with her and she would just eviscerate him. At the time, she's like 16, 17, just smacking him down. But yeah, so murder is legal. She is great. So Biff, you travel a lot. Who has those want to get away ads?
No, the Southwest Airlines.
Oh, okay. Does everybody who works for Southwest want to get away now?
Not a proud moment to be announcing you work for that corporation, but sure, yeah. Not a great week for them.
Dude, I mean, the fuck up. And look, I have always liked, but over the last couple of years have become a really big fan of Poop Buttigieg and how he's handled. I can't say the name right, so help me out.
It's not Poop Buttigieg. I think it's
Pete Buttigieg.
Buttigieg. Thank you, Buttigieg.
He's a Buttigieg.
Hello.
Wow.
But how he's handled, like I said before it was like Christmas or Thanksgiving, he actually went on Fox News to say, hey, the people that you're yelling at the counters, they have no control over this. That these things are out. And remember, they're away from their families as they're trying to get you. I thought it was such a classy statement. But he's been on top of the Southwest thing. And he went on TV the other day and he's like, here's the number of flights canceled in the United States today, of which 75% of them were one airline. It's like, I know everybody's getting upset, but we're not having a crisis at the FAA. We're not having a crisis with Transportation Department. We're having crisis with one airline that is doing this, and they're 100% responsible. We're going to hold them accountable. I don't know how you hold them accountable. I think the only way to hold any corporation accountable, stop buying their products, stop using them. But
in this case, part of it is though, like, announcing what their obligations are, right? So they're part of it. So he did announce some of that, right, in terms of what your rights are, right? So there was this great lady who does this TikTok. She's like a lawyer. She does this TikTok, I guess, where she basically said, here's your rights, if you were just delayed by whatever, here are your rights, and this is what you can ask for, and stuff like that. So I think in that sense he's making that because I guess a few years back there was a kind of a revised the Department of Transportation had a revised kind of a airline commitment statement that each one had to submit that was essentially was more that focused on their customer service and whatever else. So
the first time we as taxpayers build out the airlines, part of the deal with the airlines is the Flyers Bill of Rights is what they called it.
That's what it was. Yeah. Okay.
And then they got bailed out again with the pandemic. And again, that was revised and it was supposed to have this. And you fly a lot, and I used to fly a lot. I hopefully fly a lot again. Yeah. I mean, honestly, there were some delays out of some people's heads, but what's been fun is if you guys have followed, there's been a couple different people, one guy out of London, and I cannot remember where the woman in the United States is, put air tags in their luggage. And they've literally on Twitter in real time were tracking, because they were getting text messages back and forth with the airline saying, oh, your bag is here or your bag is there. And she would be like, well, then how come my AirTag has it in an apartment building 300 miles away from where you say it is? And it had turned out that they had hired like a third party delivery service, and somebody decided, yeah, I'll deliver these tomorrow. I'm going to go home for the night. And this woman went to the apartment and took a picture of all these bags that were like in the alleyway behind this guy. Like somebody was,
God.
some people were stealing luggage.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And because she had her AirTag, and it's the same thing. Then there was a guy, and look, travel delays happen everywhere. There was a guy and his wife flying from Germany to Heathrow, but their flight took them past London to like Dublin and then backtracking. And as they're going west to east, their luggage is going west to south. Like for some reason, their luggage got and in real time, and he posted it. I don't know if that he put that on TikTok or Instagram, but he posted his PowerPoint presentation in real time using flight data from the plane. He puts this PowerPoint together, and he's like, yeah. And it's funny. Those AirTags are great. I mean, just one time we were coming back from the Middle East, and it was a nightmare. I won't explain it, except for the fact that we got held up and missed a flight because a TSA agent didn't know what an EpiPen was. And my then 5 or 6 year old, I don't remember how old he was, lost one of our phones. And it sounds first world problem, but it was an extra phone that my wife had from her job. They gave her like 4 phones in the course of like 5 months, but it had the Find My iPhone on it. And we were able to track it down to an apartment in Queens and texting back and forth. And when I text, and it's funny because when I text the physical address, I'm like, oh, that's weird because, and like somebody tried to sell the phone back to us for like $400 or $300, and they kept going down to like $200. I'm like, well, and he's like, oh, you can Venmo me and I'll send you the phone. It's like, you have a stolen phone that you're extorting. The trust level isn't, oh, sure, I'm quite sure I'm going to send this. But I'm like, oh, no, that's okay. The cops who are on their way from, and I just Googled the cops wouldn't go and get it, but I Googled what the local precinct was. I said, yeah, the cops from the 44th office at this address are on their way to this address right now. And I never got a message back from them. So I just, but it's been awful.
Did you get the phone?
Oh, no, of course not. Like, of course not, and it's never come up in conversation.
Just don't use AirTags to track women because that's what it's all. That's what you know.
Okay, it's funny that you say that, Joe.
Yeah, it's funny.
No,
I know.
because management has an AirTag. Her boss's car keys have an AirTag on it because sometimes they swap out cars. And a couple weeks ago, her keys were in her purse and I couldn't find them. So instead of taking, because I'll start her car in the morning because, well, I'm a mobster's wife. Like, you know what I mean? I have to go out and start the car for Tony to make sure it doesn't blow up. And when I picked up her bag and I was walking it to the car, because with her car, as long as you're close enough, it will open. And all of a sudden, my phone starts going off. And it was a weird sound that wasn't like a ringtone that I know,
like an Ever Alert song.
Kind of. And I look at it and it's like there's an AirTag moving near you, and I guess there's settings on your phone that it doesn't have to be on you just to be moving. So anytime that AirTag is in the house, and so she leaves it hanging up on the weekend, but as soon as she picks it up when she goes to work on Monday to make sure she has that set of car keys too, the 2 kids, her phone and my phone, all give an alert. So yeah, I guess that's
I wonder if the Android users have that same luxury, like,
they have
I don't have an Apple iPhone.
Yeah.
Oh, so hold on. Joe's saying, so according to Joe, only stock women with Android phones is what I'm hearing. That's my takeaway. Okay.
No. Hot women.
Okay. All right.
Yes, that's your safety tip.
So, look, we're recording this at 8:00 at night on Friday. As of now, we're day 3, 12 rounds in. We don't have a Speaker of the House, but at 10:00 at night, there's pretty sure that Kevin McCarthy will finally. Dude, I don't want to talk about this too much, but here's my takeaway. The shit show for the last 3 days, a historic shit show. They have not had this drama picking a Speaker of the House since before the Civil War. I mean, we are 150 years removed from the last time any shit like this has happened. Yep. So far they've gone 12, 3 days, 12 rounds. They're coming back at 10 o'clock tonight. They think they have the votes now. I'm sure he'll have it. Here's the fucked up thing. Those 20 people, the insurrectionist caucus, that do not want to legislate. They have no agenda except how often can I get on OAN and how often can I just recap. You know what, Joe? Some people just want to watch the world burn.
I heard that.
And if this is the shit show, their first 3 days in power, what the fuck happens the next 2 years? And I mean that. It's kind of funny, except we're going to have government shutdowns because they're not going to fund the FBI. We're going to have government shutdowns because they're not going to fund the transportation department. We're not going to fund anything. And the fact that Kevin McCarthy had to degrade himself to such the last count, it's like
I guess so I get what you're saying, but then this is kind of along the lines of what Professor Cook says, right? So then if he withdraws, then Jim Jordan was the next in line. You're gonna give it to Jim Jordan?
Well, yes, because the George Clooney documentary drops next week, so he becomes Speaker of the House, and then the shitstorm of that.
It
doesn't matter.
From what I understand, the last vote, or I think it was the last vote on Friday, was that Kevin McCarthy got an extra 10 flips from the previous vote. So they're narrowing. I guess it kind of goes up and down, but I think they're narrowing the chasm there.
As we're recording, he needs as we're recording, they took a break 3 hours ago, and they're coming back at 10 p.m. Friday night, and they're negotiating. They only need 3 of those other 10 people to come on their side, or it's really interesting. They need 3 people to vote for him out of that 10, or they need 5 to vote present.
Yeah, okay.
To not vote against him,
right?
To not vote for somebody else, themselves, Mickey Mouse. But if they vote present and they're there, it's based on winning percentage. He doesn't have to hit a certain number. So if they're there and they vote present,
I thought you had to, didn't you?
No, because
otherwise, look, or at least you have to have a majority or something. I thought
no. He has to have a certain percentage of the plurality. I can't say the word, but yeah. So
whatever.
But how much he prostituted himself out 2 days ago, changing the rules that one person can call for your removal, and the Lincoln Project, which. You love them. I mean, they're all evil assholes who created this, but they did the Theresa May thing. They put a picture of Kevin McCarthy on an end table next to a head of lettuce, and they're like, which will last longer? So,
I just picture Matt Gaetz sitting in a chair like Potter and going, "Well, suddenly I become quite important."
So
look at you. You used to be so cocky.
Oh, so now, wait, hold on. The whole dialogue has to run through my head before I can.
You once called me a warped, frustrated old man. What are you but a warped, frustrated young man sitting there with your little life insurance policy? You're worth more dead than alive. Why don't you go down to the riffraff you like so much and ask them for the $8,000? You know why? Because they'll run you out of town on a rail. But since I'm a stockholder of the building and loan, I'm going to swear out a warrant for your arrest. Malfeasance, misappropriations of funds. Go ahead, run. You can't hide in a little town like this. Hello, Frank? It's Potter. I don't know. Was it Frank what he called? I don't know. I made up the guy.
The self-indulgent theaters I've missed so much. I'm so happy we're starting the new year off thank you. Not a dry eye in the house. Not a dry. Yeah. Okay. We can joke about it because it is funny. It's also horrible. What do you guys see happening with George Soros over the next couple months?
George Santos?
Soros? Santos, sorry. George Santos.
Soros, we all know about him.
Well, no, we know he's investing heavily in Jewish space lasers.
I think we talked enough about that party. What I'd like to suggest is maybe let's wait until something happens because, all the speculation from us is kind of not that interesting.
I think anything we say will be just as factual as anything he says.
That's
So
true.
it's
That is true.
Well,
That is true.
the best part of Twitter this week is all the people. It's like my grandparents came over on the Hindenburg. You know, so like all his famous quotes. But today, and management sent me a screen grab mid-afternoon, and I went to the Google machine and I could find information about it, but I couldn't find it from any blue check marks or credible sources.
What about the yellow check marks?
Yeah.
Or what are the gray check marks? You got to check those as well.
But I guess it has now been verified as of this podcast. He decided to, while he raised his hand to vote for Kevin McCarthy, with his other hand to flash the white power symbol.
Who's this?
George.
George Santos.
Your good friend George Santos.
Oh, yes.
So it's going to be interesting. And now all the pictures, for some reason, the last 24 hours, he's become best friends, like sitting together, laughing like school kids with Marjorie Taylor Greene. So, yeah. Okay. Anyways, let's talk about something happy. Hey, the Pope died. Good. Fuck him.
Yeah.
You know, Biff,
Well, the former Pope, anyway.
the former Pope. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The Pope
The
who.
quitter.
The Pope, who when a 9-year-old girl got raped by her dad and her mom took her to another state to have a medical procedure done, the Pope excommunicated the mom and the 9-year-old girl from the Catholic Church, not the father who was convicted of raping her daughter. So that part is fine, but let's show these bitches we know, oh God, it's just awful. But anyways, on
And
a
the
happy,
Nazi.
and right, you know what? What's your beef with the Nazis? But Biff, I happily was able to download to see your weekend crime news from Japan. I don't know if Joe got a chance, but what an interesting story. What the fuck?
So this guy's just driving, just kind of in the residential area of Tokyo, drives through, just drive, and they don't drive very fast in these residential areas. The roads are narrow, whatever. And as he's kind of going through he sees like this person kind of like in the middle of the road, which is not that unusual because, like I said, the streets are narrow. And then the guy just starts coming towards the car. So the guy stops, and then he just climbs onto the hood of the car, and then climbs over the top of the hood of the car, and then it looks like the guy had some kind of he has a truck with one of those those whatever those cover things. So I guess he just went all the way over the truck and apparently caused some damage. But the funny part of it was the driver who was describing the incident described the guy as it was like a zombie was climbing on my car. It's like really? And then of course they call the police. Now so the police talks to the guy. So the weird part about it is that the guy calls the police, and like the guy was waiting around or something,
right?
Like
wait,
like
so the pedestrian waited for the cop.
I don't
to
know if
resolve
that's what
the situation.
happened. All I know is that they said the police was called and they interrogated the individual.
How did the police get there? Because like the road's so narrow. There's only room.
Well,
there's already a pedestrian in the road and a car.
Well, and
it's chaos.
It's like in other countries, I think what people do is when people call the cops, they kind of like kind of run away so that they don't have to talk to the cops. But apparently this guy was like hanging around long enough because there's footage of the guy being interrogated by the police that was taken by the victim. So, it's like,
he should have
he
should have did what Jacques did with the guy in the supermarket and go, hey, we're dancing. Hey, look at us.
But yeah, it's like it was like slow speed parkour is what it looked like to me. The guy starts, it looks like he's standing still, and then the guy driving the car like slows to a stop, and this guy starts trotting at him right in the middle, like jumps up, looks in the window, goes on the roof, and then over the back. And when I saw the cops have him in handcuffs, I'm like, did they track him down? Did people have ring alarms? Were there street cameras? How did they track him down? Apparently, he just wanted to see what happened. He fucked around, see what happens.
I would have, I guess, understood it more if the guy was not walking but skateboarding, like Marty McFly in Back to the Future.
Sure.
Right.
And like he does that little move where he puts a skateboard between the car, and then he just like crawls over the car and lands on the skateboard on the other side of the car.
Sure.
And, that was a Back to the Future reference for me. Thank you.
For everybody.
Self-indulgent theater of one.
So I was two, at least. Our friend Steve, who put together a pretty impressive Lego set the other day that he shared with us on our text thread. Big shout out to Steve. But yeah, no, I was so happy, Biff, that I was able to download that one.
Actually, yeah.
For
change, yeah.
And I love it because it was a 5-minute news piece. It was like an actual. I was a little.
It's a slow news country.
I was a little disappointed. There was no animations. There was no reenactments. There was no.
Because they didn't need it because they had the footage. So yeah.
But yeah, no, that was a fun one, Biff. Thank you. So we already had our self-indulgent theater. I'll start with gaming news. I haven't played yet, but my oldest got a PS5 for Christmas.
Woo!
And
Nice.
it's funny because management took the perfect shot. It almost looked like staged, but she's sitting on the couch and he's walking across the living room to his room, and it looks like he's carrying a briefcase. And you can just say it says PS5, and she captioned it. It's like
I was thinking it was more like he's carrying his luggage, getting ready to move out into the basement.
Oh, dude, which is actually happening next week. But
Right.
she's like, and he was never heard from again.
Right.
To the end of winter break,
Right.
which is essentially true. No, we actually have. Funny that you say that. We have a friend of the podcast, friend of all three of us, Renetsky, coming to town next week.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And so, he has the nicer room. So it's like, we have a guest room in the basement that isn't. It'd be fine for like. Say
Me.
Joe,
Yeah.
but not our good friend Renetsky. She can be on the floor with the bathroom, so he will be. But I haven't played it, and I'm not going to yet. I haven't got Gotham Knight. Just the last winding down the year, beginning of this year, it's just too crazy because I don't want to start a game like that. If management might have to go away for February vacation, and that would give me a couple between doing the podcast and the little annoying people at open mics. It's like, yeah, I got enough hobbies going right now that I'm not taking any more family time away to 100% a game. But I don't want to start a game and play for a couple hours and then do this or go here. So if she ends up having to go away, depending on what the boys have going on, it's like, I might have to do Kevin McCarthy type negotiations with my 15-year-old to get access to the PS5 for a few days. But when I do, what about you, Joe? You playing anything this week?
Yeah, well, for Christmas, I got myself, the family,
The family, yeah.
a Steam Deck. And I think I mentioned this on the Christmas podcast, but a Steam Deck is a portable handheld. It's kind of like a Game Boy, but for computer. So you can play PC games, but you can also, tinker around with it and put video game emulators on there. So I've loaded it up. Basically, it's a dream machine. It's a handheld. I don't go anywhere, so I don't know why I necessarily need a handheld emulation machine, but I got it loaded up with all sorts of fun stuff, like all old retro games. Plus, I can play newer games, and I figured out a way to, you can play cloud Xbox. If you have Xbox Game Pass, you can do cloud gaming on a PC, which is basically you log in and you can do like streaming games for certain titles. And I figured out, or the internet figured out a way to do that on the Steam Deck. So now, the other day I was playing Xbox on my Steam Deck.
That's pretty
Oh,
cool.
nice.
And it was like the future. And I don't want to brag, but I have no friends. So I was able to play a little like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles video game that just came out about last year. I played that. Yeah, it's a retro style game that came out last year. That's what I'm using my Steam Deck for, not to play the latest,
it's
Call
funny.
of Duty.
It's funny you say that because I was asking my 15-year-old the other day, like, hey, he was talking about things he's playing. He's like, and I only know this term because of you, Joe. It's like, yeah, it's a side scroll. I'm like, wait, they make new games that are side scrollers? And he's like, and he said, it's like, I don't know what game it is, but it's like, it's a new game, but it's a retro game.
Yeah, there's a lot of new titles and new IPs that are done in the old retro style because those are the people making games. People like me who grew up playing those games as kids.
Now, I think Biff has been busy going for high score on Excel spreadsheet
Excel,
the last.
Oh no, Have you moved up to PowerPoint yet? Or is it
Excel is more advanced than PowerPoint. If I went
absolutely.
if I went all the way to Access, that's the upgrade.
Yes, that's right. Access is that's the
then you're
platinum
doing the
level.
database stuff. So
Yep.
So tomorrow, my oldest guy, he's obligated to do this homework thing in the morning. Then we got to go to the gym. But he'll squeeze in a good solid 12 hours tomorrow. You think you're going to beat him playing Excel spreadsheet tomorrow, Biff, or who's going to put more hours on their gaming system? You in front of Excel spreadsheets or him?
You know what? I don't have that unlimited,
Stamina.
Like basically, I'm not going to be able to play Excel like the way I used to play. Resident Evil back when I did play. So yeah, no. Obviously, your son will win, but
do you have a bunch of 12-year-olds, calling you racial slurs online as well? Because that's the video game landscape nowadays.
Oh man. So we already did a self-indulgent theater. Thank you again, Joe. Seriously.
Oh, you're welcome.
Everybody. We did the game review. We'll talk sport for just a second. And this really hit home with me, and I'm sure it hit home with you. Biff, you saw what happened at the Buffalo-Cincinnati game with
it's one of those things where I would not have watched that game if the Steelers lost the day before. I wouldn't be watching that game because it was of interest. It was going to be a good game, but I was going to watch it from the beginning only because a Buffalo win makes the Steelers' chances better because I wanted Buffalo needs to be motivated because they need a New England loss next week against the Bills for them to get in. So I was thinking, so that's why I was watching, and it's like, and of course it's just it's like, what just happened kind of a thing, right?
Did you flash back to our friend Steve Dolly?
I was, it's one of those things where it did kind of hit my mind only because, and not just him, but I have another friend, who also died on the ice. But it's one of those things. It's is it congenital and the other guy that I thought of is a guy named, I don't know if you remember. You should remember because he was going to be a Celtic, but it was actually, he wasn't going to be a Celtic. It was Hank Gathers at
Loyola Marymount,
right?
But the Celtics did have a guy.
Lim Bias, but that was a
no. Joe, are you looking it up? I cannot believe I'm going to kick myself in the ass. No, the Celtics. It was about 4 or 5 years after Lynn Bias died, or maybe it was like 10 years after Lynn Bias died. The Celtics also had a player who did the same exact thing.
Reggie Miller.
What was it?
Reggie Miller? Oh, no, Reggie Miller.
Reggie Lewis. Reggie Lewis. Thank you.
Yeah.
Reggie. And same thing. Just in the middle of a game, just turns, takes a step, and goes down. But those were congenital heart things with our friend Steve.
But that's what I thought it was, right? Because if you watch what happened, it wasn't a big hit.
Didn't look like. But do you remember the Chris Pronger thing?
Oh, yes.
So Joe, St. Louis Blues, Detroit Red Wings playoff game. Yeah. Chris Pronger, big guy. I mean, we're talking a 6'6" guy, 6'5", 6'6" guy, who takes a shot, a slap shot, square in the middle of the chest, just square in the middle. Takes one step and goes down, and his heart stopped.
That one was more clear to me.
That was right. That was the impact of that.
Right, because that it was kind of well known, before that, and I don't know if we talked about this ever, but kids' baseballs were redesigned because kids were dying of that because they would get hit by a beanball. Because they're smaller and whatever, right?
Yeah.
So
the pitcher's getting the ball hit back to the plate.
All that stuff. So they made the ball the core softer so that that won't happen.
So one of the happy things is the kid comes out of his coma. Right. And the first thing he says is he's an athlete.
Yeah.
Did we win? That's the first thing he says.
Did you hear the doctor's response?
No. Yes. You won life. You came back.
The game of life.
Came back. Biff, what do you think about the NFL's handling of it?
Oh my God. I mean, well, so even though they deny it, I don't believe their denial that they were going to give the two teams a 5-minute break to get themselves together and stretch again so they could resume the game. And of course, the two coaches, because they are humans, said, "Yeah, we're not playing." And so, and then essentially, I don't know why it took them. Felt like an hour and a half that I was hanging on before they called the game. Maybe longer. I don't know.
And to see because this is playoff implications, Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
The stadium was packed.
Yeah.
You could hear a pin drop.
Yeah.
You could literally. It was so haunting. And I there's no right answer, but the fact that you had to keep the guys on the air and talking and speculating. It was
all I can say is if there was any actual human running that league, they would have said, you know what, we'll figure this out. We're gonna call the game. We're gonna send the fans home. We're gonna deal with this afterwards.
Right.
I mean, if there was any human running that, they wouldn't have. But instead, they're kind of juggling their minds about, well, how can we, are we, can we reschedule this? Those guys are still there. We need to finish this. Do we resume it tomorrow? All of those things are just going through their heads, right?
And what I love, what I've heard is it was the players who said, no, we're done. And then Buffalo, the coach went to the airport, the coach went to the hospital and stayed there and sent the players home. Yeah. Like he traveled separate the next day, but he stayed there. And we talked about this the last podcast. It's true. The disgusting thing about we won't relitigate the decades long denial of concussions. But just this year, you saw the Miami quarterback clearly concussed, and he went back and played that game, and then was cleared to play next week's game. And I don't know how he didn't die. There was a Patriot player who clearly got concussed, runs back to the huddle. He's lining up, and luckily one of the other receivers walks into the neutral zone and puts his hands up to stop the game, because he looks over at the guy and he's like, he ain't right, and and then as he's walking to his teammate, he just collapses on the ground. And it's like, and there's NFL has not team, but NFL spotters, up in the booth who can call down to the ref and stop play anytime. Each team has spotters on the sideline, and that got missed. But this kid, so it's a hard, it's a no-win, but if the NFL can find the worst way to take it, seems like they do. So,
just briefly, I when it happened, I wanted to see if they were like what doctors were saying, and I found a video. I think I texted it to you, Jacques, a while ago. But it apparently, and I don't know if it's been confirmed, but it was a rare phenomenon called commotio cordis, which is if you have a blunt force to the heart or to the chest in the 1/20th of a second window after a heartbeat, it sends like an electronic, it basically like sends your heart into cardiac arrest.
Right.
So it was like the equivalent of like blowing up the Death Star. He had this very small window.
Exhaust port.
Yes, it was the exhaust port of his
which
heart.
I think is what happened to Pronger also.
Right, in that time. But this also sheds light because management doesn't get. You hear, oh, he has a contract for $850,000. Sounds like a lot of money, and to us three, it kind of is, but it's not, because he's a second-year player. That's $850,000 for a 2 or 3 year contract, of which none of it is guaranteed.
Yeah.
If he doesn't ever play another game again, that's it. There's no more game checks coming in. It's the only sport. I don't know about hockey, but I know in basketball and baseball.
Hockey also. Yeah, because hockey, you actually have to buy out the players. So they might not get the full amount if you get
but they'll get
out.
something.
But they'll get a certain percentage.
But in football, and then I was listening to a commentator, an ex-player, go down how the NFL has cut like benefits, like the number of people who have applied for this. And granted,
so part of it is that's so that's like, what the heck is DeMorris, doing in those collective bargaining?
Dude, it's on the It's on the players. It's on the owners. But it's like, when you think about it, okay, let's say this guy makes $500,000 a year. It sounds like a lot, but he goes from making no money in college to the $500,000 tax bracket, which is, I think it's around 40%. And so you take 40% out of that. He has an agent. He has a manager. He has a money manager. He also played 4 years of high school and 4 years of college for nothing. So the one time he gets a paycheck, that's a paycheck for 9 years of work. and he has the average career is 2 or 4 years. It's
Yeah.
it's sad. Look, the NFL can make all these contracts.
Well, definitely
guaranteed.
that. I don't know if you ever saw the ESPN documentary Broke.
Oh,
but,
we've talked about it, right?
So
It's
that, I mean,
horrible.
that kind of outlines that whole thing. So yeah. So
But then you look at, okay, the golden arm quarterbacks who have $200 million contracts, they're guaranteed.
well,
but-
not all of it necessarily,
but-
but they have a higher percentage.
But
Yeah.
but look, if somebody has a $200 million contract, they get like a $20 million signing bonus.
Yeah.
They get their $35 million contracts a year, and X amount is guaranteed.
Yeah.
The linemen, the guys who are getting hit on every play, the safety.
I think the guarantee contract part is pretty well known, but I think the part that, because I think you're talking about the Cleveland radio show that they were having the discussion. Is that what you're talking about with Jay Crawford? from
Yes,
ESPN?
yeah. And I'm like,
I think the more important thing, and I don't want to get into too much of the details, but the amount of the utter lack of health coverage that these players have after.
it's
So that's the part
unforgivable.
that I think that's the part that's so I think part of it is that their deductible went from like $2,700 to $5,500 or something like that, and then their
Benefits cut in half.
5 years or whatever, and it's like, and
Right.
then you don't get, and then
You
unless you play so many years, you don't get a pension. So
Right,
it's
three and a
all
half,
that
three and a
stuff,
half or 4 seasons. I mean,
Yeah.
here's a fucked up thing. I was reading an article today. I'm going to move on. Aaron Hernandez's
Okay,
wife.
I'm gonna start the clock now. You said you're gonna move on.
I am, but Aaron Hernandez's wife is now being investigated that she's misappropriating because he still gets a pension.
Malfeasance.
Thank you, Mr. Potter. He like his pension from the league is like a couple $150,000 a year that's supposed to go to his daughter, and the mom is trusted with anyways. But the fact that Aaron Hernandez is still making more money than this kid is horrible. Are you guys watching anything you recommend?
I'm gonna watch Wednesday when I'm done playing my Excel games.
Well, you will enjoy it. I look forward to talking about it. What about you, Joe?
Oh gosh, I haven't really been watching anything new. I was watching the second season of Only Murders in the Building. Finally, I stopped after episode 5, and I haven't gone back. I've just been playing with my little computer box and watching other people play games, and basically disappearing from the world. I'm also busy packing because moving out, baby. And my family.
To clarify, I was going to say the whole family's going with them on this date. That request came from his wife.
Yeah, we're moving to a new place in February.
So I wasn't sure if that's true. I wasn't sure if it was the Odd Couple or if it was the Jeffersons, right? I mean, it could go either way, right?
It's a little bit of both. It's a lateral move, staying in the same town.
Yeah.
Not going to a deluxe apartment, but also not being
buying.
evicted.
Yeah, and not buying. Yeah, so it's whatever. Hey, you know what? At least I have my health. Really? Have you seen my healthcare package? Anyway.
So I'm going to spend this week. I'm going to check out. I hope I'm saying it's right. Fishermen in Trouble on FX and Hulu. I don't get many recommendations from All-Star Tommy, but he says him and his wife sat down and ended up binge watching 4 or 5 episodes in a row, and they have real lives and
Fleshman
kids.
is in trouble. Is that Fleshman?
Yeah,
Fleischman?
Fleischman?
Fleischman, yeah, Fleishman in trouble.
Okay.
So if hey, the last time Tommy gave me a heads up, he gave me the IT Crowd, and I've watched that 5 times start to finish in the last 6 months. The other thing that I watched, and the
IT Crowd is is to me what Spinal Tap is for Twisted Sister.
Oh, that's well. Spinal Tap. It came out. I saw it in high school, and it was a fucking riot. 86, 87, that came into my world. I watched it with my friend Darryl Waugh from Sarnia, Ontario, almost every day for a year. And I'm not making that up. Almost every day we watched it for a year. And 3 years later, I'm in a band, and it's not so funny anymore.
Well, I want to say somebody really like Dio or somebody like that really didn't like it. It's like he said, like I think it just hit too close to home.
Right. Well, that's what it. And then you talk to anybody who's been in a touring band. They're like, "Oh yeah, I loved that movie before I was in a band."
This review is only 2 words.
Shit sandwich. That's
Where did they print that?
That's not real. You can't say that. And couldn't have even rested on that day too. So I'm going to make a recommendation to a very narrow audience. I'm going to make a recommendation to Joe's wife and to our friend Dan Cray. My management had us watch a show the other day, a movie that she was very much looking forward to, called Banshees of the Inisherin. I don't know if I'm saying it right. Inisherin. It's on Netflix. It stars oh God, who played the Penguin in Batman? I'm blanking on his name. Colin Farrell.
Okay. And
some other huge actor who hosted Saturday Night Live a few weeks ago. Management loved it. I didn't hate it. I didn't stop watching it, although I almost did. But knowing Joe's wife's sensibilities and knowing Dan Cray, they're going to watch it and say whatever. It's one of those movies, it's going to win 7 Oscars. People go get. It's a period piece, 1922, small island off the coast. It's an Irish island off the coast of the Irish mainland in 1922. And I won't talk too much about it, but I did not enjoy it, but it is one of those, and largely because there was no tights.
Right, Colin Farrell is in a movie, and he's not the Penguin.
And he's not the Penguin, right? Fuck that, man. And the other guy who's in it is a huge actor. And look, I can see why people. There was some parts of dialogue that are very Irish, very James Joyce, very like. One of the things I like about the Brits and the Irish is they will be in a fight and somebody will really burn them. And, that was good. It's like, yeah, you got me on that one. It's like they will take a pause from being mad to acknowledge that, yeah, that was really good. It's
so for clarification, the movie that Jacques is promoting is The Banshees of Inisherin.
Thank you.
And it stars Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson, and that's on Netflix.
I thought it was Netflix. And Brendan,
I don't know. It doesn't.
He just hosted SNL.
Hulu. It says Hulu.
Is it Hulu?
Yeah, maybe it's Hulu or HBO. It says HBO Max.
Oh, no, HBO Max. No, sorry.
And so honestly, it's so hard to tell. It's literally unless it's coming out with it's on CBS Movie of the Week, and I got this spinning CBS logo that we all have that music going in our head now. I don't know what it's on, but look, it was fine. It will. I will put it down now. It will win 5 or 6 Emmys. I thought it was slow. I thought it was not my cup of tea, baby. But I can see why people like Dan would like it. It's very smart. It's very Irish. And the acting is great. I mean, there's no explosions. There's no car chases. There's no cars. The dialogue is good. And, I like, me and Robert Kraft like happy endings. Okay.
Oh.
and this did not deliver, but,
I did forget to mention that last week I went to a movie theater.
Oh, wow.
I went to see the new Avatar.
And?
It was the new Avatar.
Yeah, that's
good.
I mean, it's one of those, visually kind of cool, but like I never really liked the original one that much. Like I didn't like because it just, I know that there's a lot of whatever.
Well, you don't like blue people. I mean, you've always hated the Smurfs.
Yeah, so I just I never really liked the first one that much. So
did you spend more on the ticket or the snacks in the 9 hours it took to watch the movie?
The management bought the last week, so I don't know.
Although I just read that the movie is considered profitable, so James Cameron is going to make sequels.
I'm sure they'll make.
Oh no, Joe, they have to make sequels because, and I just know this from a few years ago. They have a tie-in. I think it's with Universal theme parks. Like they're building an Avatar world. They're building it.
Uh-huh.
They're not building like Mario Land is opening up and Universal like next
Speaking
month.
of which, I can't believe you didn't bring that up because you know that thing crashed the system. Did you hear about this?
I don't, but I know our good friend Renetsky was there last week, and I don't like her because she's buying my sons more stuff, and she held up like these two like good size like popcorn buckets, and one could be like Mario and the other one could be Toad, and
Right.
asked the stupid question to management which one would Squishy like, to which she said, Joe,
Why not both?
thank you. And so now poor Renetsky is obligated to fly 3,000 miles with these. And she's not only going to do it, she's going to do it gleefully. But no, I didn't hear that it crashed it, but it doesn't surprise
Yeah, so
me.
like I guess there, so obviously the demand is high for it, and apparently people couldn't get on, like they would be in the queue and they get kicked out or whatever, and eventually the system crashed when they try to basically you get I guess you get advanced tickets and all that stuff, right? So
Well, I mean, I like, with the new iPhone, with the new Mac, with the new car, I like to get the new model a year after it's come out. You know what I mean? It's like, let somebody else break them in first because,
Sure.
that stuff's going to happen.
Well, it's not officially open, so
Right. It's a soft open, as they call it.
Mm.
Wrapping it up here, we got parenting tips for the new year from my friends.
Oh, you have friends that have parenting tips?
That would be
Great.
you. That would be you.
Well, suddenly I've become not with my money. Oh, sure, they
Merry
have
Christmas to you.
Oh, in jail. Oh, sure, your father had high ideals, so called. But high ideals without I don't know where I'm going with this. Biff, you have a parenting tip that you're dying to tell me because
what?
you're always judging the
yeah.
way I raise my
I
children.
I don't judge anybody's parenting, but I will.
Oh,
say
by the way,
this.
briefly, that reminds me. Do you know there's a show on ABC where it's a competition show and it's like a serialized weekly competition show? I think Allie Wentworth co-hosted. She's the wife of George Stephanopoulos, but it's a parenting off.
Oh,
Basically,
interesting.
it's like whose parenting style is best. So they have competitions about like little parenting competitions. I forget what the show is called, but I saw this like at the last 2 minutes of it. I'm like, what the fuck is this? And it's weekly, and it's like the same parents each and every week, So, anyways, there is a parenting tip game show out there apparently.
So your tip is to watch the game show
Yes.
about parenting tips. Okay.
That, of course.
You know
What else would you
There
expect
you
from
go.
me? A game
Nothing.
show about parenting. is
Actually,
my-
that might be the most spot on Joseph parenting tip where you get right on the
Two
nose.
yeah.
What, you got anything, Biff?
You know what? Raise a child, or hopefully you raise a child that ends up being kind of like kind and compassionate. So, as you know, I've been too addicted to my Excel games to do any entertaining. And but one day the last week, my management got sick, and my stepson and his son were in town. And so they all kind of went out, to the ocean and whatever. That was a planned day that I was going to skip, but management was going to make. She was too sick to go. So, my son did the tour guide thing, and he had to put up with his, older brother who's, kind of still a dick to him because, whatever. But
Well,
he
hold on.
basically-
I'm seeing right here. Yeah, no, legally he's obligated to.
Yeah.
Legally he's obligated to be a dick to his.
But I mean,
younger brother.
he basically put up with like a pretty much an entire day where his older brother is doing his older brother thing, and so and he didn't say peep about it, he just basically kind of sucked it up as what I got to do it for the nephew kind of a thing, and so hopefully you get lucky and you get that.
My parenting tip, and I mean this one from the heart. I think I've used it before, and I say this to my sons on a regular basis. When it's time to pick a significant other, really try to only date orphans. If you can date orphans, who are only children, that is really the way to go. For New Year's, management and I had two. There are friends. I say her friends, but there are friends. These two great women, like single moms, and one of them we're trying to plan outings with, and it's always going back and forth with her ex's family and trying to negotiate, and this holiday for this holiday for that. I mean, I got the heads up on this early on because my sister married somebody from Colombia who, for reasons we won't discuss, couldn't go home for about 10 years. Little trouble maybe getting back if he did. And then when that was all settled, yeah, they would go visit for like once every 2 or 3 years because it's a big taking, to go down there and back and stuff. So she kind of half figured it out. And sadly, my mom-in-law isn't with us anymore, but I will tell you, it's fantastic. My wife has no family, no sibling, no. So when we talk about, so the obligations, the family obligations we have, which are very few and far between, on my side, there's none from her. So it's like, I've pointed that out to my boys. It's like, how Grace can't come over because she has to go with her dad to his side of the family, and he has to go with this other dad to that side of the family. Like one of these kids, one of the single moms, like, her ex-husband, well, it's his family and now his stepmom's family. And it's like, so there's 3 people pulling on this kid. No, my advice to my sons, marry orphans, hopefully who are only children, and if you can marry an orphan who's, let's say, parents were wealthy and shot in crime alleys, then maybe you get some cool gadgets. But that is my parenting tip. It was great to talk to you gentlemen again. Happy New Year, and you guys can land the plane.
I got nothing.
Oh, so well, suddenly I've become quite important. Oh, man. Okay, well, a happy New Year to all. I can't wait for another how many, 26 of these goddamn episodes this year? Holy smoke. And then 26 more sideshows. I mean, did you hear the preview for the next week's sideshow? I think it was fresh out of his ass. Fresh out of Jacques' ass, that idea. We're going to talk about things that you might believe in, like ghosts and goblins and love. I don't, not me. Do you believe in love? Do you believe in life after love? Do you believe in Don Knotts singing Life After Love? Maybe you'll hear that on the next podcast. No, I don't think so. You'll hear it now. Do you believe in life after love? I can see it through the bedroom window. Is this Don Knotts? Anyway, that's enough stupidness. Don't forget,